Hello and welcome to this continuing first look exploring session, looking at the family of love, generally attributed to Lording Barry, written somewhere in the middle of the 16 noughties. And by golly, is it quite a naughty play? Everybody seems to be at it or interested in being at it. As we discovered in the first couple of acts in the previous video, we will be moving on to Act 3 and finding out where the various plot lines are going. There was a lot of setup last time. We enjoyed the setup, but now it's a question of will the farcical elements of this speed up? Will the plot develop in interesting ways, or will it just peter out and leave us disappointed and sad? We shall find out in this middle session of looking at the family of love. Reading today, Glister and Dryfat is
Lois in London.
reading Club and Shrimp and a Voice Off is
Alan in Suffolk.
reading Maria and Periwinkle is
Sarah Blake in The Hague.
reading Gerardine, let's call the whole thing off, and Mistress Purge is
Aliki in Athens.
reading Mistress Glister today is
Lynn in the Northwestern United States.
joining us to read Gudgeon today is
Steve in Lancaster.
reading Purge today is
Mark in the Midwest United States.
and reading Lipsalve today is
Connor in London.
and I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and generally keeping things moving forward, or that's the hope. We enter Act 3, and this is one of those interesting structural problems because this is an indoor playhouse play. It is designed with a mini break between acts. So we've just finished Act 2, where Maria and Gerardine exited and all got in a basket. And we immediately go to Act 3, Scene 1, with Gerardine probably still in a basket, and Maria, discuss. Anyway, Act 3, Scene 1, enter Gerardine and Maria.
The coast is clear, and Argus' wakeful eyes securely sleep. Time turns to us his front. Come, sweet Maria, of the auspicious hours let's take advantage.
With all my heart, I do embrace the motion with thyself. Welcome, sweet friend, to liberty of air, which now methinks doth prompt our breaths to move sweet accents of delight, the joys of love. How dost thou brook thy little ease, thy trunk?
That trunk confines this chest. This chest contains the unbounded speculation of our love, incomprehensible grief, joy, hope, and fears, the affections of my mind, are like the spheres which in their jarring motions do agree, through the influence of love's sweet harmony.
Are not inferior bodies here on earth produced and governed by those heavenly ones?
They are.
They jar, you say, yet in that strife maintain perpetual league. Why should their influence in rational souls be checked by erring sense? Or why should mutual love, confirmed by heaven, be infringed by men? Methinks 'tis most uneven.
Thou arguest well, Maria, and this withal, that brutes nor animals do prove a thrall to such servility, souls that are wards to gold, opinion, or the undue regards of broking men, wolves that in sheepskin bands prey on the hearts, to join the unwilling hands, ruin fair stocks, when generous houses die, or propagate their name with bastardy.
Sterility and barrenness ensue such forced love. Nor shall erroneous men pervert my settled thoughts, or turn mine eye from thy fair object, which I will pursue, rich in thy love, proud of this interview.
I'll suck these accents. Let our breaths engender a generation of such pleasing sounds to interchange delights. Oh, my blood's on fire, sweet, let me give more scope to true desire.
What? Wouldst thou more than our mind's firm contract?
Words are wind. Thought unreduced to act is but an embryon in the truest sense.
I am beleaguered. I have need of sense. You make me blush. Play fair, yet above board.
Hear me exemplify love's Latin word together with thyself, as thus: hearts joined, amore. Take A from thence, then more is the perfect moral sense. Plural in manners, which in thee do shine, saint-like, immortal, spotless, and divine. Take M away, or in beauty's name craves an eternal trophy to thy fame. Lastly, take O, in re stands all my rest, which I, in Chaucer style, do term a jest.
You break all modest bounds. Away, away.
So when men come behind, do women say?
Come, I say.
Aye, that's the word indeed. Men that come bold before are like to speed.
Enter Lipsalve disguised as Gerardine, with Shrimp his page.
But who comes here? Monstrum horrendum! My nostrils have the rank scent of knavery. Maria, let's remove ourselves to the window and observe this piece of man's flesh.
And they exit. I'm going to pause us there because I think we should just get back in the zone, and just in the sort of tone, and because we've sort of talked a little bit about their wooing and their back and forth. So yeah, thoughts on this particular wooing back and forth that we've got here, Aliki?
I mean, it's hard not to see it as happening with heavy petting, isn't it?
Yes, and we've got to sort of think back to yesterday when he comes out of the hamper, and the sort of the conversation they have here there as almost foreplay to this, which is foreplay to a more active sense. That they're slowly taking steps. Sort of in isolation now, it sort of felt a bit. Really. But I think actually in the progression of the play, it actually works quite well, and there is a sense of flow from previous scenes and where they're going, and they're hot to trot, really, aren't they? And they're sort of working their way up. So there's a sort of the word play with the more, and it's not quite as effective as I think it's trying to be, but I like the game that's being played there, and I think that's quite nice.
I wasn't quite sure how to pronounce it either, whether it should have been more or more or all of that. So there's fun to be had with that.
I think what you need is a blackboard, actually.
It feels a bit clever, doesn't it? But I like it. Monstrum horrendum. It's just nice. It's like, oh, something else is happening. So yeah, and we I don't know if this is going to be a continuation of where the other element of this plot line, the other plot line is going to occur now. Alan,
was there not a fashion in the late Elizabethan period for that sort of wordplay game of chopping words up and seeing how things changed?
Probably. I don't know if we can be period specific on that. I think people did wordplay, so it might be. I don't know. Did Lily do anything like that? It might have done.
I'm sure we've come across it before, and I have a feeling it was in the slightly earlier plays.
Yeah, it's particularly an early thing, I think. I mean, I can think of an example, but it's not fit to.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, we pause mid-scene and just to sort of get ourselves back in the zone, enter a subplot. We've got Lipsalve and Shrimp on, and the Maria and Gerardine are stepping back to overhear what's going on. So take it away, Lipsalve.
Now, Mistress Maria, ward yourself. If my strong hope fail not, I shall be with you to bring...
To bring what, sir? Some more of your kind?
Faith, boy, that's my name.
I'll be sworn, sir, you have a good loose. You let them fly at a pace.
I have shot fair and far off, but I hope to hit the mark indeed.
God save it.
But where's the sign?
Why, there!
That's a special thing to be observed.
I've heard talk of the Gemini. Methinks that should be a star favourable to your proceeding.
The Gemini? Oh, I apprehendi. That's because I am so like Gerardine. It's not so, boy.
If you were spit on's mouth, sir, you must needs be like him, for you're both cut out of a piece. But Lord, sir, how you hunt this chase of love. Are you not weary?
Infatigable, boy. Infatigable.
Fatigable, quoth you? May call it leanable well enough, for I'm sure it is able to make a man lean.
'Tis my vocation, boy. We must never be weary of well-doing. Love's as proper to a courtier as preciseness to a Puritan.
And enter Gerardine and Maria above.
Love, Sabaldi love, a punk in this place, sub-intelligentur.
Boy, I've spied my saint.
Then down on your knees.
Fly off, lest she take thee for my familiar.
And Shrimp gets out of the way.
Save thee, sweet Maria. Nay, wonder not, for thou as thyself art wonder, to see this unexpected gratulation.
Whom do I see? Oh, how my senses wander. Am not I hero? Art not thou, Leander?
Art in the right, sweet wench. More of that vein.
Her passion overcomes her, or 'tis the kindest so. Oh, excellent device, it works, boy.
Does indeed, sir, like the suds of an ale vat or a washing bowl.
Joy not too much, extremes are perilous.
Oh, weather-beaten love! Cicely, go make a fire. Go fetch my ladder of ropes. Leander's come.
Oh, mark how prettily in her rapture she harps upon Gerardine's travel. Ah, let the ecstasy have end. I am Gerardine.
The devil you are.
Huh? Let me see. My love so soon returned?
I never travelled farther than thine eyes. My bruited journey was a happy project to cast a mist before thy jealous guardian, whom now suspectless gives some hope to attain my wished delight, before pursued in vain.
Ask if he strained not hard for that same project.
Has not that project overracked thy brain and spent more wit than thou hast left behind?
This lied, she flouts him.
No, wit is infinite. I spent some brain. Thy love did stretch my wit upon the tenters.
Then 'tis like to shrink in the wetting.
Cotton's well. It cannot choose but bear a pretty nap. I tender thy capacity, a comfortable call, cherish it. But where's my favour that I bid thee wear as a pledge of love?
Now dost thou put him to it? More tenders for his wit. He's nonplussed quite.
I wear it, sweet Maria, but on high days preserve it for the tainting of the air. What could I say? Just now the hose.
Oh, in your t'other hose. He that I love shall wear my favour in those hose he has on.
Fiends and furies, block that I am.
In your t'other hose? She talked of a ladder of ropes. If she would let it down, my life, he would hang himself in it. In your t'other hose? Why, those hose are in lavender. Besides, they have never a codpiece, but indeed there needs no ivy where the wine is good. Your t'other hose?
I said you were too prodigal of wit.
Expostulate no more. Grant me access, or else I'll travel to the wilderness.
Your only way. Go. Travel till you tire, be rid, and let a gull discharge the hire.
Stop! The doctor! The doctor!
Where? Which way?
This way, that way, some way. I heard him coming.
Oh boy, I'm abused, gulled, disgraced, my credit's cracked.
You know that's nothing for a new courtier.
Oh, I shall run beside myself.
No, sir, that's my office. I'll run by your side.
Oh, my brain is out of temper. What shall I do?
Take a counsel, sir. Get a cullis to your capacity, a restorative to your reason, and a warming pan to your wit. He comes! He comes!
Follow close, boy. Let him not see us.
And exuent Lipsalve and Shrimp enter Glister.
But more flatterers about my carrion, more battery to my walls, shall I never be rid of these petronal flashes? As for my friend Gerardine, the wind of my rage has blown him to discover countries, and let the sea purge his love away, and him together I care not. Young wenches now are all of the hoy. We that are guardians must respect more besides titles, gold lace, person, or parts. We must have lordships and manors, elsewhere as well as in the man. Wealth commands all, and wealth I'll have, or else my minion shall lead apes in hell. I must after this gallant too. I'll know his rendezvous and what company he keeps.
Exit Glister.
Must we be abrupt? Retire, sweet friend, to thy small ease. What more remains to do? We'll consummate at our next interview.
So shall I bear my prisonment with pleasure. Look thou but big, our cruel foe will yield, and give to Hymen the honour of the field.
And they exit. End scene. Reference to Eastward Ho there.
Yeah, although it may have been a kind of standard term. I mean, it turns up somewhere else too, I think, and I just don't know. I mean, the play certainly had a sort of scandalous reputation because of the imprisonment of a couple of the authors, so it's possible that it is reference to that.
So we have a sort of an attempt at wooing in disguise that goes horribly, horribly wrong. I'm curious actually to see how that plays in practice. I felt like I sort of got the joke, but I wasn't always quite landing the details of it. It felt like the situation is fine, but I'm not sure about the execution. But thoughts in the room? How funny did people find it? Alan?
I found it interesting. Shrimp got quite a bit to say there, and we're getting the sort of clever servant trope coming in again, and the rather dim master.
Sarah?
I nearly corpsed onto the hose. I mean, I don't know why that was so funny, that little exchange, but it was.
It's the wrong trousers, Gromit.
Yes. It's in the other trousers.
I left them in my other. I mean, it's so. I mean, yeah.
Stephen, and then Lois.
I just love the sound of "Where my favour in those hose he has on." It sounds like a tongue twister. You could really have fun with that.
Lois.
Yeah, there's a lot of this I didn't really get. I mean, there seemed to be some jokes that presumably were hilarious if you knew what they meant. But
it's like I can see what the basic flow and structure of this is, but I'm not. The lines aren't individually quite landing, and it's like there's a lot of decoding. I wonder whether in the moment it all works a lot better with some physicality, and of course you've got Gerardine who's not seen, who's basically going, "I'll skip this." Do this, and you've also got the servant below doing something sort of similar, and so the shape of it's good. I just wonder if just 400 years have been cruel to the actual lines of dialogue, which gets in the way. I do quite like Glister just turning up, going, "Oh, for goodness sake, how many more people are going to try and get in through the window?" I just got to put spikes up.
Yeah. The stage, I mean, I take it that there's a stairway leading from the stage to the window, but it must be off stage because they disappear when they go up it and then they reappear at the window.
Mm. Yes, I think there has been debate over time about precisely the layout of this particular space and how that staircase functions. But yeah, that seems to be the way it works.
Mhm.
Okay, so but it looks like Maria and Gerardine they're definitely hot to trot now. It's like, you know, they're quite eager. So let's go to a different plot line. Act 3, Scene 2. Enter Mistress Purge and club before her with a link.
Fie, club, go at the other side the way. Thou callowest me and my ruff. Thou wilt make me an unclean member in the congregation.
If you be unclean, mistress, you may pure yourself. You have my master's wear at your commandment. But what am I then, that does all the drudgery in your house?
Thou'rt born to it. Why, boy, I can show thy indentures. Thou givest no other milk. We know how to use all in their kind.
You're my better in bark and rind, but in pith and substance I may compare with you. You're above me in flesh, mistress, and there's your boast. But may I t'other part, we're all one before God.
Enter Dryfat.
All one with me. Dost thou swear too? Why then, up and ride.
Whither away, Mistress Purge?
To the family, Master Dryfat, to our exercise.
What, by night?
Oh, Lord, aye, sir, with the candles out too. We fructify best in the dark. The glance of the eye is a great matter. It leads us to other objects besides the right.
Indeed, I think we perform those functions best when we are not thrall to the fetters of the body.
The fetters of the body? What call you them?
The organs of the body, as some term them.
Organs, fie, they have a most abominable squeaking sound in mine ears. They edify not a whit. I detest them. I hope my body has no organs.
To speak more familiarly, Mistress Purge, they are the senses, the sight, hearing, smelling, taste, and feeling.
Marry, said I. Lord, what a word that is in my mouth. You speak now, Master Dryfat, but let me tell you where you err too. This feeling I will prove to be neither organ nor fetter. It is a thing, a sense, did you call it?
Aye, a sense.
Why then a sense let it be. I say it is that we cannot be without. For as I take it, it is a part belonging to understanding. Understanding, you know, lifteth up the mind from earth, if the mind will be lift up. You know, the body goes with it. So it descends into the conscience, and there tickles us with our works and doings, so that we make singular use of feeling.
And not of the rest.
Not at that time. Therefore we hold it not amiss to put out the candles, for the soul seest best in the dark.
You come to me now, Mistress Purge.
And somewhere around now, we have the entrance unseen of Purge, who's going to listen in to their conversation.
Nay, I will come to you else, Master Dryfat. These senses, as you term them, are of much efficacy in carnal mixtures. That is, when we crowd and thrust a man and woman together.
What, so close at it? Thought this was one end of your exercise. By Our Lady, I think there is small profit in this. I'll wink no more, for I am now tickled with a conceit that it is a scurvy thing to be a cuckold.
I commend this zeal in you, Mistress Purge. I desire much to be of your society.
Do you indeed? Blessings on your heart. Are you upright in your dealings?
Yes, I do love to stand to anything I do, though I lose by it. In truth, I deal but too truly for this world. You shall hear how far I am entered in the right way already. First, I live in charity, and give small alms to such as be not of the right sect. I take under 20 in the 100, nor no forfeiture of bonds, and unless the law tell my conscience I may do it. I set no pot on Sundays, but feed on cold meat rest o' Saturdays. I keep no holidays nor fasts, but eat most flesh o' Fridays, of all days of the week. I do use to say inspired graces, able to starve a wicked man with length. I have Aminadabs and Abrahams to my godsons, and I chide them when they ask me blessing, and I do hate the red letter more than I follow the written verity.
Here's clergy.
These are the rudiments indeed, Master Dryfat.
Nay, I can tell you I am, or will be, of the right stamp.
Pox of your stamp.
Then learn the word for your admittance, and you will be made much on by the congregation.
Aye, the word, good Mistress Purge.
A brother in the family.
Enough, I have my lesson.
So have I mine. A brother in the family. I must be a familist today. I'll follow this gear where 'tis on foot, i' faith. While 'tis on foot, i' faith.
Then shore up your eyes and lead the way to the goodliest people that ever turned up the white of the eye. Give me my book, club, put out thy link, and come behind us.
And they knock.
Who's there?
2 brothers and a sister in the family.
And they are let in. Purge also has a knock.
Who's there?
A familiar brother.
There's no room for you, nor your familiarity.
How? No room for me nor my familiarity. Why, what's the difference between a familiar brother and a brother in the family? I know. I made an ellipsis of in this place where it should have been expressed so that the want of in puts me clean out. Or, let me say, may it not be some mystery drawn from arithmetic? For my life, these familists love no subtraction, take nothing away, but put in and add as much as you will. And after addition follows multiplication of a most parasithypocritical crew. Well, for my part, I like not this family, nor indeed some kind of private lecturing that women use. Look to it, you that have such gadders to your wives, self-willed they are as children, and, if faith, capable of not much more than they, peevish by custom, naturally fools. I remember a pretty wooden sentence in a preamble to an exercise where the reader prayed that men of his coat might grow up like cedars to make good wainscot in the house of sincerity. Would not this wainscot phrase be writ in brass to publish him that spake of it for an animal? Why, such wooden pellets out of earthen trunks do strike these females into admiration, hits 'em home, sometimes perhaps in at one ear and out at the other, and then they depart in opinion wiser than their neighbors, fraught with matter able to take down and mortify their husbands. Well, I'll home now, and bring the true word next time. I shall expect my wife anon, red hot with zeal and big with melting tears, and this night do I expect, as her manner is, she will weep me a whole chamber pot full. Locker lapides, do I cast pills abroad? 'Tis no matter what I say, I talk like apothecary as I am. I have only purged myself of a little choler and passion, and am now armed with a patient resolution. But how? To put my horns in my pocket? No, what wise men bear, it's not for me to scorn. It's an honorable thing to wear the horn.
And A exits, end of scene. Okay, there's a lot of interesting questions about what's going on here, but obviously the family of love and establishing what we're portraying for the family of love is now increasingly important. We were discussing this last time about how important the family of love was. This is more like going to a speakeasy at the moment. Do you know the correct password? We're in the family. I'm a familiar brother. Oh no, you got it the wrong way round. You're not coming in. That's quite interesting. And also Purge's understanding of what this exchange between Dryfat and Mistress Purge is here. We were talking about whether he was a willing cuckold earlier. And it's like once he sort of looks into what it's like to be a cuckold, he's not liking what he's seeing. But is this really what's going on with Dryfat? Because is she also interested in Dryfat, or is this just a completely misnomered conversation that he's just barking up the wrong tree entirely? That's what I assumed it was, but I was a little distracted, so I might have missed what was going on. I am the idiot in a hurry in this room. Aliki.
Yeah, I couldn't quite tell either, even as I was reading it. But I think I'm coming down on the side of this is a fairly innocent religious exchange, because she's such an idiot about other things that I can't quite believe that this is flirtation on her part.
Yeah.
She's just inadvertently saying terribly rude things.
Yes, because he's talking about organs and stuff, and she's, I don't know what you mean. Quite fun. Potentially. Lynn, then Lois.
It could be half and half. It's like she doesn't know what's going on, but he's assuming that they're speaking a coded conversation and that she's consenting to his desire. So they're just sort of purposes there. It's like maybe he knows that it's like he thinks they're talking dirty and she thinks they're talking religion.
I mean, I think the important thing here is if this is a comic situation, we need to know what the joke is. Otherwise, it will not land. So if he's being terribly pompous about religion and she's not understanding it, and Purge is overhearing, thinking it is flirting, then you can work with that. I think when we get into other combinations and ambiguities about what the scene is doing, any attempt at humor is probably going to die a death. I also, again, I think I'm having this generally with the play, is that the structure and the idea of all the scenes work really well, but the dialogue isn't quite landing. I don't think that's the playwright's fault. I think that's just time. But there are tweaks here that I'm constantly thinking you need to just tighten things for it to land. But yeah, there were some really nice bits in there. I quite liked Lois.
Yeah, I mean, it depends an awful lot on puns, some of which people would still get, and of course, depending on how you say them, they'll probably get even more of them. But yeah, I find it peculiar. I mean, I think she objects to organs because she doesn't believe like organ music in churches. I mean, as Puritans didn't, so that's why she thinks it's so disgusting.
Yeah,
and I don't know. It sounds to me as if he certainly thinks I think he thinks he's making double meanings, but perhaps they're both meant to be so dumb that they don't know what they're saying, because that is a popular joke in this period, especially of people of this class and these beliefs.
And then Purge does this. Purges literally this massive speech. Yeah. Bits of it again. I'm sort of going with a large chunk of it. I'm going, yeah, I'm quite liking some of this. I'm just liking the sort of the precision of his. No room for me, how did I not get in? Oh no, I did the thing wrong. And it's like he's trying to decode the code of entry because he structured his sentence incorrectly. Used the wrong tense.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's stuff to mine there. And yeah, there's potential, but I do think we might need to workshop some of this. Other thoughts in the room before we go into Act 3, Scene 3? No. Okay. Let's see if we get the resolution we were hoping for from last time. Act 3, Scene 3. Enter Lipsalve, apparently undoubleted, with his whip.
Fortune, devil's turn in thy teeth. I'll turn no more of thy wheel. Art is above thy might. What? Though my project with Mistress Maria failed, more ways to the wood than one. There's variety in love. It is believed I am out of town. My door is open. The hour is at hand. All things squared by the doctor's rule. And now I look for the spirit to bring me warm comfort to clothe my nakedness. And that is Mistress Purge, the cordial of a familiarist. And come quickly, good spirit, or else my teeth will chatter for thee.
Enter Gudgeon, similarly semi-undressed, with his whip outside the chamber.
Oh, the naked pastimes of love, the scourge of dullness, the purifier of uncleanness, and the hothouse of humanity. I've taken physic of Master Purge any time this 12 months to purge my humour pon's wife. I never found her so fugitive from exercise to exercise, from family to family. I could never yet open the closed stool of my mind to her, so that I may well say, with Ovid, E mihi quod nullis amor et medicabilis herbis. Now I'm driven to prove the violent virtue of conjuration. If it hit, that I yerk my familiars out of the spirit, I'll hang up my scourged stick for a trophy, and paradise my thoughts. Though the doctor go to the devil, 'tis no matter. Let me see. Lipsalve's doors open, and himself out of town. Excellent doctor, soothsaying doctor, oraculous doctor.
Enter Dr. Glister above.
I have taken up this standing to see my gallants play at barriers with scourge sticks for the honour of my punk. And in good time I see my brave spirits shining in bright armour, nakedly burning in the hellfire of lechery, and ready for the hot encounter. Sound trumpets, the combatants are mounted.
And indeed, the Gudgeon and Lipsalve see each other at this moment.
The apparition? Mistress Purge peers through him. I see her.
The spirit appears, but he might have come sooner. I am numbed with cold, and shivering ague have taken away my courage.
They are afraid one of the other. Look how they tremble. The flesh of the devil strengthen them.
Has no cloven feet. Oh, what a laxative fever shakes me.
Will it not carry me with him to hell? Well, I must venture Clogmarthus.
My cue. Clogmarthus!
My cue. Gerardine.
Garrigus!
Garazinios.
Ton tetufon!
Test of the phones.
With the whirly volcano!
And they lash one another.
God knows! Fox!
Hold out!
Plague!
God, blood
take
of the
you.
fox hour! A plague of devil take you!
Out!
Jones,
Juice!
very smart!
Oh, for one of the hoops of my Cornelius tub, I must needs be gone. I shall burst myself with laughing, else magic hath no such rule. Men cannot find lust ever better handled in his kind.
And exit Dr. Glister.
Thou, with the name of Jove, I conjure thee.
With any name saving the whip, I'll no more of that conjuration, a plague on it.
Speak. Art not a spirit in the likeness of my friend Lipsalve that should transform thyself to Mistress Purge?
How? A spirit? I hope spirits have no flesh and blood, and I am sure thou hast drawn blood out of my flesh with the spirit of thy whip.
Then shall we prove to be honest gulls, the doctor an arrant knave.
A plague upon him for a Glister. He has given our loves a suppositor with a recumbatus. I tell thee, Sarah.
Tell not me, let me prevent thee. The wind shall not take the breath of our gross abuse. We feel the gullery. Therefore, let us swear by our naked truths, by the hilts of these our blades, our flesh-tamers, to be revenged upon that paraperopandentical doctor, that pocky doctor.
Agreed. We'll cockhold him. Then he shall not be able to put his head indoors and make his precise, puritanical, and peculiar punk, his apothecary's drug there, unknown cockatrice to the world.
If report catch this knavery, we've lost our reputations forever. Wherefore, let's be secret. Ill tax we women of credulity when men are gold with such gross foppery.
Come, let us in and cover both our shames. This conjuration to the world's a novelty. Gallants turn spirits and whipped for lechery.
And they exit. Okay. Broadly speaking, I think that managed to do what we'd hoped for. The sort of conjuration that they're doing to each other, that they've been scripted to do. It does actually make sense. It's not just nonsense words. It's basically on guard. You on guard yourself. We're both on guard. We're even Whirly Twinos. It does kind of make sense. It's go crack your whips. That is a pretty good iteration of what I was hoping for. Of course, they then realise and they're going to try and cuckold the cuckolder. So I feel that might be a good place to put an interval. We'll see in a moment with the next scene that concludes Act 3, but that feels like an end note that might be quite a good place to put something like that. There's some nice dialogue in that, and it doesn't hold on to the joke too long. Thoughts on the room? Anyone disagree? Health and safe. I mean, how you stage this safely. These are not easy things to manipulate in a safe and controlled fashion. I'm really actually curious now to talk to some of our fighty people about how do you stage this without horrific injuries? You could take somebody's eye out with that.
Yeah, you probably just use a very soft kind of rope, don't you?
Yeah, but even so, I mean, it's not like actually a sword fight. I kind of feel is weirdly safer than this. Actually, because you can choreograph it precisely, because you are an extension of the object you're moving. Whereas with a whip, the whip can go pretty much anywhere, and it's quite difficult to control. So it's an interesting question, just on the thing of how you actually do that.
I saw a production a long time ago, of a play that I won't mention, but it had only 3 people in it. And for some reason, the set was a giant spider web, and they were all using these lashes and attacking each other. It was actually pretty absurd, especially because at the end, instead of a sword fight, they had somebody dying of a poisoned lash, which just struck me as impossible, I suppose, but ridiculous. But I mean, it did involve quite a lot of work with lashes.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like Rob says, like a whip that's going to be at all persuasive can actually injure a person pretty badly. It could, like a leather whip can break skin, and you could really hurt each other. And it's not as controlled as a fake edged weapon. That's
Anyway,
that in 1608.
Yeah, just get some boys to whip each other. That'd be fine,
They're used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, children, they'll bounce. It's fine.
They bounce back.
I think that generally did what it said on the tin. I'm relatively content with that, and it sets up a next plot motion. So it's not just like a pointless set piece that goes nowhere. It is setting off the next bit of action that we're going on to further forward. So cuckoldry, moving on to cuckoldry, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Any additional thoughts before we move into the final scene of the act? No? Okay, Act 3, Scene 4. Enter Maria.
Gerardine, come forth. Maria calls.
Enter Gerardine out of the trunk.
Those ribs shall not enfold thy buxom limbs 1 minute longer. The cincture of mine arms shall more securely keep thy soul from harms.
What heavenly breath of Phytonessa's power that raised the dead corpse of her friend to life prevails no less on me, for even this urn, the figure of my sadder requiem, gives up my bones, my love, my life, and all to her that gives me freedom in my thrall.
Be brief, sweet friend, salute and part in one, for niggard time now threats with imminent danger our late joyed scope. Thy earnest, then, of love, ere soul hath compassed half the signs, I fear, will show a blushing fault. But 'twas thine aim to enforce consent in him that bars thy claim.
Love salves that fault. Let time our guilt reveal. I'll ne'er deny my deed, my hand and seal. The elements shall lose their ancient force, water and earth suppress the fire and air, nature in all use a preposterous course, each kind forget his likeness to repair before I'll falsify my faith to thee.
The humorous body's elemental kind shall sooner lose the innated heat of love. The souls in nature's bounds shall be confined, hence course shall retrograde and leave to move, ere I surcease to cherish mutual fire, with thoughts refined in flames of true desire.
These words are odors in the sacred shrine of love's best deity. The marriage god longs to perform these ceremonial rites which terminate our hopes. Till mine grow full, I'll use that intercourse amongst my friends that erst I did. Then in the height of joy I'll come to challenge interest in my boy. Till then, farewell.
You'll come upon your cue?
Doubt not of that.
Then 20 times adieu.
And they exit. There's a whole series of questions about the way the basket is used in this sense. Some editors say they both come out of the basket at this moment, like they basically, and there does seem to be a sort of consummation has occurred at some point. We have a really interesting progression for these two characters, and that they're getting increasingly hot to trot, and this does feel like a farewell after the fact. So it's a very brief scene. It's interesting. I was talking about intervals. Maybe this is a place where you put an interval, or because it is the end of an act, or whether this is a way to open, suggest they've had an enjoyable interval. Anyway, Lois.
Yeah, you can certainly have a basket that's rocking madly from side to side, which would be very funny. But I think it does seem to go against the general morality of this period, which is that you do not have sex before marriage, not among hero and heroine, and clearly in this case that's what's happened.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got people having affairs. We've got people trying to effectively break up other people's marriages, and we've got people consummating before marriage. This play's doing all the things that we don't really find very often, or if they do, the terrible things happen to the characters at the end of the play, or it gets resolved in a way that's deeply unsatisfying. Alan, I think you're waving.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would make a good opener for the second half of the show. Unless you added in the business that you're talking about of the madly rocking basket.
It feels like it. No, it does feel like it's a good place to close. Actually, it's not that far after the midpoint of the play, so it functions perfectly well as a good interval spot. Following this, you've had promises of revenge and lovers consummated. If that might work. That might work as a good place. Not to say we couldn't still have the rocking basket. I mean, it could be happening during the other scenes. Every so often somebody wonders what's going on. Sits on the basket. Anyway. Other thoughts before we go into Act 4? Lynn?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter because if this were produced today, we'd have it with adult actors and all of that. But it's kind of grossing me out a little bit to think about this in its original production, where the female characters are all played by like boys whose voices haven't changed yet. So these really sexy love scenes between Maria and Gerardine are like between a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old. Yeah, it's just like I really
and
think
you've got to remember this,
lots of levels. This play is appealing to the sort of prurience of its audience. Like, I put a dirty old man in the house, and that's kind of freaking me out.
That's one of the things about Boys' Company generally is that these tend to be plays that generally are doing an awful lot of work that the play the adult companies
Internet
do.
connection, not kids.
Lois.
Yeah, I mean, I've been recently reading again Andrew Gurr on playhouses, and he thinks that in the early years of James's reign, there was no real censorship of the plays put on by the boys' companies because these are private theaters, and that censorship was really only being applied to the public theaters, and that would certainly explain a lot because it's difficult to imagine anybody in the Lord Chamberlain's office passing some of this.
Yeah.
Although they were more concerned about political and religious topics than they were about bodily functions. Sort of, yeah, kind of the opposite of how it is today. And like we're allowed to criticize our leaders, but we're not allowed to say the F word.
Well, we are now. I mean, it's all over the place.
Right. Okay, let's move into Act 4 then. Let's see where this is going. So potentially for a modern performance, we might put an interval here. Let's see if this feels like a good opener for a second half. Act 4, Scene 1. Enter Lipsalve, Gudgeon, Shrimp, and Periwinkle.
Come, boys, our clothes, boys. What's the most current news, Periwinkle?
Faith, sir, fortune hath favoured us with no news but what the pedlar brought from Norfolk.
I think we have a muted Lipsalve.
Is there nothing stirring at court, Shrimp?
Faith, there is, sir, but nothing new.
Good wag, Faith. Thou smellest somewhat of a courtier, though thy mother was a citizen's wife. Off with that filthy great band. Nay, quick! On with your robe of sanctity. Nay, suddenly, man.
Why must we shift ourselves into this demure habit, if impossible to be of the family, and keep our own fashion?
Oh, man, the name of a gallant is more hateful to them than the sight of a corner cap. Hadst thou heard the protestations the wife of a bellows mender made but yesternight against the gallants? Thou hadst forever abjured crimson breeches. He swore that all gallants were persons inferior to bellows menders, for the trade of bellows making was very aerial and high, and what were men and women but bellows? For they take wind in one place and do evaporate at another. Evaporate was her very phrase.
Methinks her phrase flew with somewhat too strong a vapour.
Nay, she proves farther, that all men receive their being chiefly from bellows, without which the fire burns not. Without fire the pot seethes not. The pot not seething, powdered beef is not to be eaten, of which she then averred our nation was a great devourer, and without which thy could never flight for thy country abroad, nor get children at home. For, said she, powdered beef is a great joiner of nerves together.
What answer madest thou?
Marry, that I thought a board was a greater joiner of nerves together than a powdered beef. With that she protested that a board was an instrument of the devil, and as she had proved that bellows makers were of God's trade, so boards were of the devil's trade. For, and thereupon she blew her nose, the devil and boards did both live by the sins of the people.
Enter Club and Mistress Purge.
No more Mistress Purge is at hand.
Banish boys away. Make haste before Jo shall be with us ere she can be provided for her.
Exeunt, Shrimp and Periwinkle, Lipsalve and Gudgeon retire to overhear what's being said.
Advance your link, Club. What time wert thou bound, Club? At Gut-tide, Holland-tide, or Candle-tide?
I was bound indeed about midsummer.
And when hath thy apprenticeship end? At Mickle-tide next?
So I take it.
They say, Club, you fall heavy on such you love not. You never learned that of me.
Indeed, mistress, I must confess my falling is rustic, gross, and butcher-like. Marry, yours is a pretty, foolish, light, court-like falling. Yet, believe me, my master smells somewhat too gross of the vocation. He wants tutoring.
And why, I pray?
My master, being set last night in his shop, comes to Master Dr. Glister, as his manner is, squirting in suddenly, and after some conference tells my master that by his own knowledge you were young with child. To which my master replied, Why, Master Doctor, will you put me to more charges yet?
Thou art a fool, in that my husband spake as wisely as if the master of his company had spoke. He knows doctors have receipts for women, which makes them most apt to conceive, and he, promising, had ministered the same lately to me, thereupon spake it. Lead on with your link.
Art ready?
Ready?
And quickly, pitfully, look scurvily, and dissemble cunningly, and we shall quickly prove two of the fraternity. Benedictum and sanctity, love and charity fall on Mistress Page, sister of the family.
And what I pray be you two?
Two newly converted from the rags of Christianity to become good members in the house of the family.
Who, I pray, converted you?
Master Dryfat, the merchant.
And from what sins hath he converted you?
From two very notorious crimes. The first was from eating fish on Fridays, and the second from speaking reverently of the clergy, but was resolved as your talent in edifying young men went far beyond this.
Enter Purge once again unseen.
A talent I have therein, I must confess, nor am I very nice at fit times to show it. For your better instructions, therefore, you must never hereafter frequent taverns, nor tap houses, nor masques, nor mummeries, no pastimes, nor playhouses.
Must we have no recreation?
Yes, on the days which profane lips call holy days, you may take your spaniel and spend some hours at the ducking pond.
What are we bound unto during the time we remain in the family?
During the light of the candle, you are to be very attentive, which being extinguished, how to behave yourselves, I will deliver in private whisper.
'Tis now come to a whisper. What young familists be these? I'faith, I'll make one. I'll trip you, wife. I scent your footing, wife. For Galen writes, Paracelsus can tell, apothecaries have brains and noses eke to smell.
We shall, with much diligence, observe it.
I fear I shall have small cause to thank that diligence, but do your worst. He that hath read 5 herbals in 1 year can find a trick which shall prevent this gear. They are going. Follow, Purge, close, close and softly, like a horse-keeper in a lady's matted chamber at midnight.
Mistress Purge knocks.
Brethren and a sister in the family.
Enter in peace.
You and Gudgeon, which Lipsalve and Mistress Purge and Club we can infer.
Brethren and a sister. That's the word. How beastly was that mistaken last day? I should have said a brother in the family, and I said a familiar brother, for which I and my family were thrust out of doors. But as Titus Celis of Holborn Bridge most learnedly was wont to say, QD.
He knocks.
Who's there?
A brother in the family.
Enter and welcome.
And exit Purge into the house. Okay, they have figured out how to get in. Well done. Bless you. Okay, there's a sort of the structural stuff that this scene is doing, and there's quite a lot of sort of just verbiage going on that I wasn't that engaged with. Lipsalve was saying an awful lot of things that didn't necessarily take us very far. But there were some... It feels like the opening of an act as well. So it does feel like the opening of the second half. So that feels like we've got a very firm interval place, what we might put in place. There is some nice stuff in here. Again, it's this thing of Purge is constantly seeing people flirting with his wife, whether it's real or not, it's just in his head. He's like, he understands the concept that someone's cuckolding him, but he keeps not finding the right person. The way he talks is really weird. I'm very interested in what he's doing. But apothecaries have brains and noses eke to smell. So, Aliki then Lois.
I'm coming down on the side of Mistress Purge being sincere in her religion, although I'm not quite sure whether she's having it off with Dr. Glister or not. And I put it in the chat, but I think I'll say aloud, she must be whispering in their ears during that last speech of Purge's, giving them the secret instructions of the mystery of her faith.
Yeah. How to behave yourselves, I will deliver in private whisper. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's part of me now leaning towards a sort of Masons style religion here, even though, of course, that's not a perfect analog because it's Mistress Purge. But that sort of sense of a secret order that you can only go in and you have to go through various rites and things, etc. Secret handshakes and all the rest of it. That sort of logic is now fitting better than, say, some of the other ones we were talking about last time. Lois.
Knock 3 times and whisper low that you and I were sent by Joe. Yeah. Do you have any note on that last sentence? But as Titus Silas Bridge most learnedly was wont to say, QD.
I can have a quick look in the Rebels edition. I've got lingering somewhere. Quasi dictat is the QD, I think. Well,
oh, I see. That means that, yeah, that makes sense because it's, almost, I said almost the right thing, I guess is what he means. I mean, saying a familiar brother instead of a brother in the family. But who on earth is Titus Silas of Holborn Bridge?
It's some sort of generic tradesman.
Well-known local figure that's having a malt things they hear about.
John Doe. Possibly.
Yeah, it's not very very helpful. In the sense of it's an answer, but it's not actually very informative. So yes. Yeah, again, structurally I'm sort of fine with this, but I just feel that it just needs a lick and a polish. It just needs, some trims. Just to tighten it up and just increase the pace. I mean, it's not an excessively long play, but it's longer than we probably want for a comedy. So I'm feeling that some blue pencil here will just move it on a bit quicker, and then maybe some tweaks in workshop. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, we'll go into Act 4, Scene 2. Act 4, Scene 2. Enter Gerardine disguised
as a porter.
Thou sacred deity love, thou of power predominate, more to be admired than able to be expressed, whose orb includes all terrene joys which are, all states which be, pay to thy sacred throne as tribute free their thoughts and lives. Like Jove's, so must thy acts endure no question. Why thy hidden facts the gods themselves obey. Heaven synod holds no gods but what thy awful power controls. The Delphian archer, proud with Python's spoil, at Cupid's hand was forced to take the foil. Nor Mars his warlike adamantine targe could free his warlike breast at Cupid's charge. And Jove, whose frown all mortal lives bereaves, his marble throne and ivory scepter leaves, and in the likeness of a bull was seen, as forced by him to bear the Tyrian queen through Neptune's watery kingdom. If these submit, my metamorphose is not held unfit. And see, in most wished occasion, Dryfat the merchant presents himself. Sir, in the best of hours met, my thoughts had marked you out for a man most apt to do them the fairest of offices.
What? Art thou a Welsh carrier or a northern landlord, thou art so saucy?
Is it possible, sir, my disguise should so much fool your knowledge? How, a northern landlord? Can you think I get my living by a bell and a clack dish?
By a bell and a clack dish? How's that?
Why, by begging, sir. Know you me now?
Ah, Master Geraldine, disguised and ashore. Nay, then, I smell a rat.
Master Dryfat, shall I repose some trust in you? Will you lay by a while your city's precise humour? Will you not deceive me?
If I deceive your trust, the general plague seize me. That is, may I die a cuckold.
And I say thou shalt die a true citizen if thou conceal it. And thus in brief, it stands with thy knowledge how seriously I have and do still affect Maria. Now, sir, I have so wrought it that if thou couldst procure me a fellow that could serve instead of a crier, I myself would play Placket the parroter and summon Dr. Glister and Maria to appear at thy house. And as I play the parroter, so wouldst thou but assume the shape of a proctor, I should have the wench, thou the credit, and the whole city occasion, well, discourse this 9 days.
How's this? How's this? I should procure a fellow to play the crier, and I myself should play the proctor. But upon what occasion should they be summoned?
Upon an accusation that Dr. Glister should get Maria his niece with child, and have bastards in the country, which I have a trick to make probable.
And now I recall it to memory, I heard somewhat to that effect last night in Master Beardbush the barber's shop. But how will this sort? Who shall accuse him?
I refer that to me. I say, be that my care. All shall end in merriment, and no disgrace touch either of their reputations.
Then take both word and hand, 'tis done. Club, Mistress Purge's prentice, shall be the crier.
Oh, my most precious Dryfat, may none of thy daughters prove vessels with foul bungholes, or none of thy sons hogsheads, but all true and honourable Dryfats like thyself.
Well, Master Geraldine, I hope to see you a fabulist before I die.
That's most likely, for I hold most of their principles already. I never rail nor calumniate any man but in love and charity. I never cozen any man for any ill will I bear him, in love and charity to myself. I never make my neighbour a cuckold for any hate or malice I bear him, but in love and charity to his wife.
And may those principles fructify in your weak members. I'll be gone, and with most quick dexterity provide you with a crier. Tomorrow at my house, said you, they should appear?
Be that the time, most honoured Dryfat. But be this known to none, most loved sir, save Club, or to some other whom your judgment shall select as a fit person for our project.
Thus enough. Time out of sight.
Exit Dryfat.
Maria, thou art mine, earth's perfection and nature's glory, woman, of what an excellency if her thoughts and acts were squared and levelled with the first celsitude of her creation. To enjoy a creature whose dishevelled locks like gems against the repercussive sun gives light and splendour, whose star-like eyes attract more gazers' loves, to see there a move than the Tartarian's god, when Aegion's hill amounts a triumph, a skin more pure and soft than is the silkworm's bed, tooth more white than new-fallen snow or shining ivory, is happiness sought by the gods themselves. Celestial Venus, born without a mother, be thou propitious, thee do I implore, not vulgar Venus, heaven's scorn and Mars's whore.
And exit Gerardine. Okay, some very interesting wordplay going on in that sequence. I mean, may none of thy daughters prove vessels with foul bungholes. I mean, amen to that. Okay, so yes, we've got the extension of the plot. We're seeing how the resolution for his plot line is going to be arranged. We found the reason why Dryfat exists. Dryfat is there to move the plot on in the second half. So you establish him in the first half of the play, even though he doesn't really do anything. So he's there as a go-between. That is his function. Okay, we now understand what he's for, which pleases me. Lois.
Yeah, well, this is why I remembered him saying something sensible in the first act. He actually said something on Gerardine's behalf, I think, to her guardian. What's wrong with him as a husband for Maria, when when Glister was being so hostile. And I think that is sort of preparing us for this. I think there's also possibly a suggestion that he's only in the familist thing for the sex, or, it's not quite clear what he's doing there. But I mean, most of his lines suggest that he's kind of joking about it in the same way that Gerardine does in this scene.
Mm. Yes, and yeah, Gerardine's bookending of this as well. The way he sort of just go, he comes in and just going, and it's basically what his opening speech in the scene was, basically, wasn't it? Very highfalutin, but if the actor really goes for it and just demonstrates his joy, and then also, yay, I've got all the things in place for the cunning denouement of the play. So it's setting all the pieces in motion, which is nice, and some really interesting wordplay between the two characters there. So that was interesting. A bit more there. Any other thoughts, Alan?
Yeah, we've suddenly seen you getting a heck of a lot more classical references coming in, which weren't there anything like so much in the earlier bits of the play.
I think it's a Gerardine thing. I think that's where we've had classical references earlier in the play. We have had them. We had the whole Trojan thing. I don't know if that was Gerardine or somebody else, but we have had them. But I think it's when you go highfalutin poetry time that the classical allusions really slip in. I don't think it's in any really there in the prose. That's my feeling. Lynn, then Lois.
Yeah, I wonder if Gerardine is supposed to be sort of a spoof of the stereotypical lover. It's like, I'm so in love and she's so perfect, and she's more beautiful than Helen and better than Venus. So it's still supposed to be comic, but it's going to a slightly different well. We're just sort of mocking those conventions of being in love.
And it's not unendearing.
I think with the right actor, it could be pretty sweet. It could be very sweet. As long as but it bears cutting though. It's like maybe not quite.
I think again, with all of this, I'm looking at the trims here, trims there, trims there. The idea of the way he comes into the scene, the way he comes out of it. But you also do feel that you just need a sort of shepherd's crook to just pull him off when he gets going. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, Gerardine and Maria, it's hard to tell whether they're parodying love scenes or are actually doing one. I mean, they're given this really rather archaic rhymed verse. I don't think people were speaking much in quatrains at this period in most plays. And they have one or two of what I think is often called the Venus and Adonis stanza, the quatrain followed by couplet, which is, I think, associated with love poetry. And they speak in that as well as in couplets. That could in itself be, I don't know, kind of in quotation marks, or it could be meant to be pretty and standard love scene stuff. But I think the general atmosphere of this play is such that you wouldn't take any serious love scenes seriously, would you?
No, there is something playful about what's going on with those two there, because there is sincerity and there is momentum. The scenes make sense. It's not that their progression and love story doesn't make sense, but it is heightened in a slightly silly way. And so it's sort of having its cake and eating it, I think. Lynn?
Yeah, I think we're talking about the difference between parody and satire. These two young people are very earnest. They're very earnest. And we can sort of laugh at them quietly and still kind of find them endearing. So you need to, I think a production would need to walk that line.
But they're not airy-fairy with their love poetry, because they have got it on. It is part of a.
They've done the do, yeah.
Yeah, they know their onions, as it were. Aliki.
I just want to take a moment to note that not only is the plan to knock Maria up and go, ta-da, it's all right, it's me, we can just get married, but to knock her up and frame her uncle for the incestuous act.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of the way of making it public and making it known, so that then they are socially forced to marry them. And I'm assuming that actually time has passed and that she is, because he's already had sex with her and therefore is automatically pregnant because of play logic. So there's an awful lot of perhaps conversations that we haven't seen on stage have occurred in terms of this plan. I don't know, he might have just unilaterally come up with it, and Mariah has no idea where this is all going, but Aliki.
Do you suppose she kept him in the trunk until she was sure she was pregnant?
Oh, I like that. Yeah. That's quite disturbing, but that's fine. Okay, we'll see whether that can be got across in the production. Shall we move on? Yes, let's do that. Yeah. Act 4, Scene 3. Enter Mistress Glister and Maria.
Good aunt, quiet yourself. Ground not upon dreams. You know they are ever contrary.
Minion, coin no excuses. I grant dreams are deceitful, but a true judgment, grounded upon knowledge, never fails. What? Have I not observed the rising and falling of the blood, the coming and going of the countenance, your qualms, your unlacings, your longings, most evident tokens? Besides, a more certain sign than all these, too, you know it. I need not speak of it. Nay, I am as skillful in that point as my husband, I can tell you. Aristotle speaks English enough to tell me these secrets. Body of me, so narrowly looked to, and yet fly out. Well, I see. Maids will have it in spite of laws or locks that restrain them. They will open. Do men what they can.
I see my fault appears. Simplicity hath no evasion. 'Tis bootless to deny where guilty blood, sighted by touch of shame, runs through my veins and leaves my conscience stain even in my face. Forbear, I do beseech you, to publish my defame. What I have done, you shall not answer. I must bear my own.
Bear your own? Ay, Mary, there it goes. What must you bear?
For my sins, forsooth.
Your sins, forsooth, confess to me, and go not about the bush. You have been doing, that's flat. You have caught a clap, that's round, and answer me roundly to the point, or else I'll square. Come, whose act is't? I cannot devise, unless it be my husband's, for none else has access to thee. I am sure time has turned his bald side to thee. I do but wonder how thou tookst opportunity. Speak, tell me.
Now, good aunt, press me not. Let time reveal what you suspect, for never shall my tongue confess an act that tends unto my wrong.
A Gerardine like a porter.
Will you not bolt? I must hat out on you, and will.
Sorry. By your leave, mistress.
Passion of my heart, what art thou?
No ghost, forsooth, though I appear in white.
No, but a saucy knave, I perceive by your manners.
None of that livery neither. I am of the bearing trade, forsooth, you may see by my smock frock, I would say. I am, if it please you, of the spick and span new set-up company of porters. Here's my breastplate, and beside our own arms we have the arms of the city to help us in our burdens. Ecce signum. Here's the cross and the sword of justice in good pewter, I can tell you, which goes as current with us as better metal.
What's your name, sir?
Nicholas Nebulo. There's but a straw's breadth between that and the arms. 'Tis in the backside of the cross here, and well known in the city for an ancient name and an honest and like your worship.
You are none of the 12, are you?
No, forsooth, but one of the 24
orders of knaves. I thought so. Sirrah, you're a rascal, to come thus bluntly into my house with your dirty startups. Get you without doors, like a filthy fellow as you are, a place more fit for you.
Good words, mistress. I may be a warden of my company for aught you know, and for my bluntness we have a clause in our charter to warrant that, for as we bear, so likewise we may be borne with, and have free egress and regress where our businesses lie, where our business lies.
And what's your business here?
I have a letter, and please you, to Master Doctor.
From whence?
That I cannot show your worship, but I had it of Kirtle the carrier, whose lawful deputy I am.
Leave your scraping, Sirrah. Fie, how rank the knave smells of grease and taps droppings.
And Gerardine coughs and spits.
Ah, were you rheumatic too, with a vengeance?
Yes, indeed, mistress, though I be but a poor man, I have a spice of the gentleman in me. Master Doctor would smell it quickly, because he's a gentleman himself. I must to the diet, and that is tobacco at the alehouse. I use no other physic for it.
Did ever such a peasant defile my floor, or breathe so near me? In faith, Sirrah, you would be bummed for your roguery, if you were well served.
Bummed well enough already, mistress. Look here, else. Sir Reverence, in your worship, Master Doctor's lips are not made of better stuff.
What an impudent rogue is this? Sirrah, be gone, I say. I would be rid of you.
Be rid of me? I shall gallop then. You mistake me, forsooth. I am a foot-post. I do not use to ride.
I think the rascal be humorous or drunk. Well, I will read the letter and send him packing, or else he will spew or do worse before me. Fie on him. I think he will infect me with some filthy disease.
Or else I lose my name.
What's here? Your poor nurse, Thomasine Tweedles. For my life, now I shall find out my husband's knavery I have so long suspected.
She begins to nibble. 'Twill take a faith. Mistress, I see some discontentment in your looks. Care ill befits so delicate a spirit. Be frolic, wench, for he that is so near thee has been much nearer.
That accent sounds sweet music. 'Tis my love. That tongue breathes life into my lifeless spirits. Gerardine. Oh, rapture! Why thus disguised?
No more. Be mute. Thus must thy very forms to bring our cares to end. Her jealousy ensures this drift, which, if it take true scope, love's joy comes next. Be fearless in that hope.
'Tis so. Rat's bane, I have it, racks on, it torments me. Here 'tis. Woe worth the time that ever I gave suck to a child that came in at the window, God knows how. Villainous lecher. Yet if you did but see how the little red-headed knave is to his father, how like the little red-headed knave is to his father. Damnable doctor, a bastard in the country, and another towards here. I am out of doubt this is his work. You are an arrant strumpet. Incest, fornication, abomination in my house. Intolerable. Oh, first long nails to scratch out his eyes.
Or the breeches to fight with him.
Out of my sight, Queen. Thou shalt to Bridewell. Oh, I shall be mad with rage.
Then you shall go to Bedlam.
Hence, you slave.
I must have a penny. You must pay me for my pains.
I'll pay thee.
Oh, that's the doctor, but he wants his horns.
I'll furnish him ere long if I live.
It works as I would wish. Farewell, Maria. This storm once past, fair weather ever after.
Looks at Gerardine.
Was ever woman so moved? But you shall be talked withal, and for mine old fornicator, he shall have it as hot as coals in faith. Here's stuff indeed. Come, minx, come. There's law for you both. Have I found your knavery? If I wink at this, let me be stone blind or stoned to death. Bear this, bear all.
Exit Mistress Glister with Maria. Okay, so the plot thickens and progresses very much as planned from the previous scene. And yeah, there's that sense of, you know, the disguise has gone into some detail there of this this question of this company of porters, of which I've been trying to look up footnotes on that, of which I singularly failed to find a particularly good exposition on. But yes, there's lots of sort of detail about city affairs and livery companies and the various people involved in such things. So it's all sort of bouncing off that kind of detail. Questionable how much of that would actually land for an audience today, but I think you might be able to keep some of it and then trim off some of the more opaque stuff. But yes, it's moving the plot forward. Act 4 is very much seems to be doing the getting everybody together in one location thing. It feels like everyone's sort of pushing towards the final catastrophe where everyone will be in the same room at the same time just to completely destroy any potentiality of doubling. But it's not a massive cast anyway, so I'm not actually that annoyed about that. But it does mean there will be a bit of room for maneuver next time. You have been doing that's flat.
I wonder, like she talks about, coming, going, like her she's blushing and pale and she's craving weird food, and then there's another sign. I don't even have to tell you what it is. I wonder what that is. Like, what? She's already talked about qualms. She's got morning sickness, so like unlacings, like she has to loosen her stays because she's already starting to gain weight.
It depends who's in charge of the laundry, I suspect, on that logic.
So what is this mystery sign?
It's the absence of a sign, I think, is the point here.
There are no red flags being raised.
Yes, the dog in the nighttime sort of logic.
Okay, I got
you. It's doing it's doing a lot of moving these various parts around. It's Mistress Glister is given something to say, and there's character work going on. Any other thoughts about this particular little sequence? I like the detail of the costume. We can see what his porter costume is going to look like, at least in sort of shape and form. We've got an idea of it, which is quite nice. I like it when you've got some detail you can do it. And he'd say, even if we dispense with a percentage of what he's talking about, I like the idea of the official porters union.
This is white. We even have a color. Well, I know that like people who worked in what we would call the hospitality industry often wore white canvas because that could be washed and bleached and ironed, whereas wool can't. So, and your choices were basically wool and linen for everyday clothes in this period.
Yes, sorry, I was distracted by a thing. I
wonder what the bit in pewter is. Here's the cross and the sword of justice in good pewter, I can tell you. Just wonder what he's got there.
Like some kind of insignia that pins.
That's what I thought. A badge.
Yeah.
With presumably his name on it as well, because he says something to that effect.
The insurance salesman.
Yeah. Wonder how
is it the logic being it was the kind of prop he could create is it because pewter's just quick and easy metal for them? It looks like some thought has gone into this. He's got to have made a costume.
Yeah.
And then he's like,
yes,
totally
on the lanyard. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Totally legit, just as good as any other metal.
He's gone off and printed some business cards off a machine on the side of a thing. Look, I'm legit, definite. We'll say suggests a level of organization, though there is a little bit of surprise for Maria and going on here and sort of, but it doesn't automatically mean that they don't vaguely know what the plan is. It's just a question of how much complicity there is between them.
And Gerardine has had some time, because if she's already showing and has skipped some, skipped a couple cycles, it's been a couple months. So
yes, and this is doing what a lot of plays are doing with this sort of sense of time telescoping, even though the time does, it's this double time thing of the play world is moving the time signature on really, really quickly, but it's acknowledging that time must have passed in some fashion. There seems to be a lot of time, and that leads to the how long he was in the trunk for. So question that we had earlier. So long as it's not Boy and His Dog style trunk work, then we're fine. Lois.
What's interesting is that this is a plot that Geraldine has devised. Meanwhile, we've we know that Gudgeon and Lipsalve have another plot against Glister. So what'll be interesting is if this is a really well-written play, we may get these plots colliding or somehow, impinging on each other, which could be nice.
Yes, we've got hypothetically everybody's sort of heading to the same location, and that should hopefully resolve itself nicely. Whether it all happens at the same time or whether they're separate scenes. I mean, we've got at least one more scene of Act 4 to do. So there's that structure element of each individual act is also sort of has a theme and a general direction. And then Act 5 itself will occur, and that's what we'll get through next time. So, final thoughts about the play so far. Many of us have been here all the way through. It's been a little harder work for me this session. I think there's a sense of there's a lot of material that isn't landing as well as it probably did 400 years ago. A little too much obscurity in some of the dialogue, but not insuperable problems. I think structurally it's there. We did get the whipping scene. I thought was a reasonably good, that paid off and moved the plot forward. It wasn't just a dead end. We've got a good interval point, and it's not too massive a cast. I think generally it's still holding up quite nicely with caveats. I'm going to go to Donald first as our minister without portfolio. Sorry, I didn't introduce you at the beginning.
No, sorry, it's quite all right. No, I would absolutely agree. I mean, I think just one curious question. There's a reference, I mean, one of the first scenes we read this afternoon, or you read this afternoon, a specific reference to Chaucer. That is the first time I've heard Chaucer referenced in early modern drama. Is that a rarity? Because I can't think of a.
I'm sure we've had Chaucer referenced a few times. It doesn't happen often.
No, it wasn't.
But I'm sure it's happened.
Yeah,
Lois.
It was just curious.
Well, he's very specifically referenced, of course, in the prologue to Two Noble Kinsmen, which actually says this story comes from Chaucer. Chaucer of all admired, the story gives. Here, there, constant to eternity, it lives. But that's 1613, or it might be later, actually, because nobody really knows the date of that prologue.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's an aside. No, I'm still enjoying it. As I say, I think, as we said yesterday, it does need a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of filleting around the edges. I don't think every single. I mean, some of that stuff about the guilds and so on probably could. Merchants, the city comedy stuff.
Yes, it could be UPS or something.
From a theatrical point of view, I still think it's.
I think it's a question of also momentum. Obviously, this process slightly takes the momentum out of the plot because we're stopping and starting so much. I think there is momentum here. There is a sense
of knowingness about it.
Yeah,
I think if you are aware of that in the playing, then I think you're fine. Without sending it up, I think you've got to try and keep it as straight as possible. But you know that we know that they know, and
yes, and
the tone is peculiar, but I think it's earning its keep.
Yes, I think, and that tonal thing is most apparent with Maria and Gerardine, where there is something a bit silly about what they're doing in a way that other people their characters are silly, but they're not sort of affecting a certain style and getting that balance right. Mark, I see waving.
Yeah, I agree that there's like some bits of dialogue that feel like they just aren't really landing in a way that it feels like they should. And overall, I wouldn't say that I've really fallen in love with this play like I have some of the other ones we've read, but I do think it's solid, and I've been enjoying it more this session. I feel like it has more of a sense of momentum, like in and of itself in this third. It feels like we clearly know where the plot's going now, whereas we didn't before. In a way that I think makes it more interesting. I feel like it was a little bit like, why do I care in the first third? Which a lot of that can be solved in production and with trimming, certainly, of some of the less stellar writing. But yeah, and I agree with the tone of the love plot. I'm starting to see how that can come together well, partly through this conversation of going a little bit over the top silly while still having it be genuine among the two of them. I think that is giving me more of a vision of how it will be interesting to watch early in the play too, the session we did last, not just this one. So yeah, for me, it's coming together more than it had been in the first session.
Yeah, in the sense that stuff is actually happening, whereas we had a lot of setup last time. There's a lot of people talking about things happening, and then nothing really happened. And it's like that whole section to do with Mariah's how the money is all going seems to be a scene just to get all the characters together in a room rather than a scene that's actively plotting anything. It's like I was expecting a whole will caper sort of logic going on, and none of that materialized at all. So it's an interest. I mean, they might do in the end of the play. I don't know. Anyway, lots of people waving. I'll go to Connor first, then Aliki, then Lynn, then Alan.
Oh, is my microphone working? I don't know.
Yes.
I really like it today. And I think it could be set in an old world transatlantic kind of cruise, like, but it's an old cruise that's trying to modernize themselves. So you got like the Purges, like Mistress Purge is like a masseuse or a new age kind of like crystals and herbs, and Purge is like head bartender, and after making people purge from being drunk. So you got these kind of otherworldly kind of things going on, and you got the last scene is like Mistress Glister or whatever her name is, like it's an old Grand Dame or something like that. So I think it'd be quite nice because you have the levels like we were talking about yesterday with the staircases and stuff. Maybe, I don't know, but that's just it's coming across something contained within that kind of world that'd be quite funny.
But it makes sense of all the various servants because they could all be stewards.
Yeah, because he's literally come on with like he's just stolen the trolley with the here's my pewter and my sword and this and that and like kind of with a letter kind of thing. It kind of works that way, I think.
Aliki.
So two things. One is we were having fun with the idea last session that Mistress Purge might never appear because she's talked about so much and does practically nothing in the first bit. But here she's absolutely crucial to what I guess we'll call the B plot, although possibly it's the A plot since it's the one that's really got to do with the family of love. And the other one is about this question of the family of love. So the way I understand it, the joke is that they're vaguely puritanical, but everybody thinks because of the name, they must be some sort of adultery cult or sex cult.
Well, it's partly because they all meet at night as well. It's like that's unusual and weird, and what's going on.
So there will need to be some careful editing and workshopping for any production to kind of clarify that joke for modern people, given that we're quite used to religious sects that do turn out to be basically sex cults. But I think, and I could be wrong, I think the joke is that they're actually quite not this thing at all. They're just assumed to be.
We'll partly find out when we get to the end whether it may all just end in an orgy. We can hope. Lynn.
Yeah, I have kind of a more general response. I'm kind of feeling like if I saw this in production, I'd have to be in the right mood, like maybe slightly intoxicated, because I'm finding all the bodily function humor a little much, a little relentless. I like a good bodily function joke as much as the next person. Can't help myself. But maybe it's just like it's like a really early hour of the morning where I am, and it's kind of making me a little queasy. And the fact that we have the accusation, false, thank goodness, of incest as a plot device, and we're supposed to find that funny. I don't know about that. I'm having a little trouble getting over the ick factor here. But I think pace might take care of a lot of that. You just keep rattling along and having fun, and you don't give your audience time to think about like, ew, that's kind of weird. But I don't know, that might be something to be aware of. Is there like maybe a little too much 9-year-old humor here? And how do we ameliorate that?
Alan.
Yeah, I mean, following on from Lynn's point there, if it's a boys' company, they were renowned for basically smart humour and bodily function humour. It strikes me that it's very much a piece of its time and place. From recollection, I think the Family of Love was a relatively short-lived sect, and was obviously topical at the time. I suspect there may well have been something topical in this rip we just had on the Worshipful Company of Porters.
Yes.
As
that
to what they
definitely
were...
is a thing that is a thing at the time. I just haven't been able to chase down precisely what it means.
Yeah. Maybe that's one for Prof. Tracy, given her knowledge of the livery companies. The will thing that you referred to, it was, of course, Gerardine's will that was being read. And the whole point of that scene in retrospect was effectively where he said, "Oh, and my movables to Maria," which was basically the device that allowed him to be put in the box and delivered to her. So I think that's what the purpose of that one was. We don't know anything about the will of Maria's father and what assets, if any, Glister is hoping to keep his sticky mitts on.
I think it was that question of actually the clarity of what's going on in that scene. What we were talking a bit about it last time, and if that is literally all it's there for, I think we do need to be a bit careful about what's going on there. Any other final thoughts? And as Lois?
Yeah, I mean, I think audiences won't like the play if it's a collection of thoroughly despicable people. I'm trying to figure out, can one in fact make these people more attractive? I mean, even Geraldine and Mariah, I think probably people would like it best if they are incredibly sexy, and if that whole bit where he seems to be virtually pawing her, and as someone said, heavy petting. I think if she's just pretending that she's horrified by it, it might be better, because otherwise he's practically raping her. I mean, this is this should be mutual consent. But if you play it, she's saying, "Oh, shocking, you're going much too far," and then they're both having a really wonderful time. I think the audience might relate to that a bit better, and maybe like, the idea of two really clever, very sexy people. You might also, I don't know, get them enjoying Glister's cleverness with the two stooges. Maybe even the sense of the Family of Love being a kind of in-joke. It seems to be something sort of like that. Some of the people, it's not really clear, but it seems to be basically, to me, an anti-Puritan joke of the usual type. But it could be that somebody in it is sincere. But I just don't think in this kind of play anybody is sincerely religious. It just doesn't.
No.
It just doesn't fit with the general atmosphere. But I mean, some way or other, you've got to get this to be delightful rather than just a lot of really creepy people behaving.
I don't find them particularly creepy. I mean, apart from the two gallants who are just really obnoxious. I mean, people have affairs. There are people, naughtiness occurs. And the people we don't like particularly end up whipping each other. So far, I'm perfectly happy on that level. I do think we need that there is more work for the actor to do than sometimes the text is giving us with some of the characters, where I felt we had a bit more in the first session than we were getting this time with some of the people that felt like they were just people on stage. But I think it will come out in the wash is sort of my thoughts. Stephen, you've only been here for this session. I don't know if you have any final thoughts. You may be just going, I've no idea what's going on.
I don't know. There's lots and lots of 3 or 4 line speeches that seem to me to be not very interesting. So it's kind of your point about the actors doing it. Well, why are they going to have to do so much work? It feels like somebody's trying to make a musical, but they've only like 12-bar blues or something like that, And here, something great will happen in this speech, and you're going, yeah, well, when's it going to happen then? There's lots and lots of those, So whoever writes it can knock out an innuendo, okay, but give them lines to fill where they're not allowed to use innuendo, and it's kind of it's just filler, so it's just weird dramatically, it's kind of, the pacing is all kind of strange for me. There's too many of these things. So that's my only contribution, really. It seems to be kind of, it's sometimes it seems to have like the energy of farce, doesn't it? And there's a lot of, there's a farcical imagination producing it, I think. But I don't know. They just don't, they don't seem to know what to do. Where, there's kind of like page of dialogue when it could be half a page.
Yeah, structurally it's fine. I think the plotting is fine. The characters, the logic of the characters is fine. It's just that there is something slightly lacking in the writing. And considering this week, in terms of recording, we're going to be doing a William Percy, is at the same time, has a similar problem, but in a much more extreme iteration of someone who can write one-liners but can't write dialogue. Whereas this person can write dialogue, but not quite as excitingly as perhaps we'd like.
They can't write short monologues.
No. Lois.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking of this, you get references to someone as our best plotter. I mean, that was said of Anthony Munday. Yeah. And some of these plays were produced by somebody creating a plot and then other people writing it. And that, I almost wonder if that's what happened here, because it is quite a good plot, but the writing is not very good.
I mean, I wouldn't quite go that far. I think it isn't quite landing as well as it could. I'm going to be kinder, but
yeah, right.
Sarah, I think you're the only one who hasn't thrown in saying at the close. Do you have anything to add?
Not really. Pretty much what Mark and Steve said covers it for me. It's not that I'm not enjoying it, but I just feel it's taken an awful long time to get to where we are. And it's I'm finding the plot quite fun. I'm finding the characters quite fun, but it's been a bit like wading through treacle for me, especially today. And I mean, yeah, so I just agree with you, really. I think in this case there's a good play in there, but you need to just take your scalpel out and cut it right down.
And then find out whether it at pace then really flies or not. Yeah. And okay, that's part of the process. That's what we'll try it at pace without any cuts, and then we'll play around with cuts and see what happens. That's what we do.
And I think that would relieve my sense of like there's just too much bodily. I think my sort of negative reaction to it would be much ameliorated by lots of cutting and really good pace.
And to be honest, because I've only been half paying attention, I haven't noticed half the bodily function stuff. So it's just, but that's just because I'm the person in the audience who's sitting there going, I've got this email to send. It's been me today. So many emails to do today. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. Anyway, all that remains is to say, well, we will return. We will return with the final session to see whether it lives up to a fantastic climax or whether we all go home feeling a bit dirty. So all that remains, thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. We fructify best in the dark.